Roll call.
Rowe.
Yeah.
Bagley.
Here.
Harding. Johnson.
Here.
Melton.
Here.
Palermo. Mr. President.
Here. Please rise for the pledge and remarks by Councilmember Johnson.
Have a seat. Good afternoon. In honor of Customer Service Week, I would like to thank all of you. I don't know how many of you know the number of projects, services that the city provides on a day-to-day basis throughout the city of Omaha. And you, the customer, have the benefit of receiving those services. So again, in honor of Customer Service Week today, I would like to acknowledge you for being our customer and also express the importance that you play in providing services and being a customer to the city of Omaha. Thank you. Now at this time, I have a proclamation that I would like to do in honor of. Yes, please come forward. All right.
Ms. Johnson, we're just going to have Ms. Butler call the meeting officially to order, and then we'll go into proclamations. So go ahead, Ms. Madam Clerk.
An affidavit of publication is on file for the pre-council and city council meeting, and a current copy of the Open Meeting Act is posted in a white binder on the east wall of legislative chambers.
Then I'll go ahead and just give everybody a welcome here this afternoon, and look forward to having you here and to hearing your testimony on many items today. I would encourage you to turn your cell phones off or at least to vibrate as we get started here. And we'll have Ms. Johnson start with the proclamation.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. Sorry for jumping ahead of
No problem.
of the game there. I guess I was a little bit excited about giving this proclamation that I kind of moved a little bit quicker than anticipated. Today we have our pastor here today to accept this proclamation. Whereas St. Benedict of the Moore Catholic Church Bryant Basketball Court and Youth Center opened and was dedicated as the Bryant Cage Center in 1966, located next door to the St. Benedict School, and features 4 large basketball courts along North 24th Street, 2 smaller basketball courts along Burdette, and a playground. And whereas St. Benedict Church opened the Bryant Center Resource Center in 1985 as a separate nonprofit organization offering educational, cultural, recreational, and economic opportunities to improve the well-being and vocation capabilities of North Omaha residents. And whereas the Bryant Center operated a boxing club, a Head Start program, a senior center, and other important activities throughout the year, and continues to be an important institution in the neighborhood. And whereas through hard work and dedication, Minister Benedict Sundiata Menelik has provided and maintained a safe and clean historical area for youth in the city, with no incidents of violence or police calls since its grand opening on July 4th, 2020. Now, therefore, we, the City Council of the City of Omaha, do hereby proclaim Tuesday, October 4th, 2022, as Minister Benedict Sundiata Menelik Day. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I would like to thank Councilwoman Juanita Johnson and the city of Omaha for this proclamation. Appreciate it. and we're getting ready to do some great things in North Omaha at the Bryant Center. We've been doing some great things since 2020 during COVID. We were open till 12 and 1 at night, me and Father Vitalis. Father Vitalis is at Our Lady of Lourdes. I'd like to thank him for his guidance, and we're looking forward to doing some great things. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Items 6 and 7 relate to the same project and can be considered together for Posh Acres located northeast of 234th and State Streets. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval. Item 6, a resolution to approve the preliminary plat with a waiver to section 5399 sidewalks. Item 7, a resolution to approve the final plat.
Public hearing and vote on numbers 6 and 7 are today. Proponents, please.
Trevor Veskerna with Thompson, Dreesen, and Dorner, 10836 Old Mill Road. I'm here representing our client Callaway Homes for the preliminary and final plat of Posh Acres. Our client would like to construct a single-family home on Lot 1. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Motion and a second. Roll call.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Palermo. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Items 8 through 11 can be considered together for Coventry located northwest of 204th and Harrison Streets. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval. Item 8, an ordinance to rezone this property from AG District to R4 District and R4 District to MU District. Item 9, an ordinance to approve a major amendment to mixed-use district development agreement. Item 10, a resolution to approve the final plat. Item 11, a resolution to approve the subdivision agreement.
Public hearing and vote on numbers 8, 9, 10, and 11 are today. Proponents, please.
Good afternoon, Council. Brian Emmerich with Olson, 2129 South 39th Street. The development consists of 2 lots of multifamily and 1 lot of a medical office building for children's. Here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any other proponents? Seeing none, any opponents?
Here we go, Mr. President. Donnie Johnson, the Johnson Equestrian Foundation, North Omaha Concerned Citizen Foundation. I oppose this program for several different reasons. One is that, Ms. Johnson, you're a wonderful councilwoman, but in 1967, I was getting money at Bryan Center, $100 a week at school, and then I went all the way across the ocean. When are we gonna start doing some things that would benefit us more so? I can't spend no certificate. So I don't need certificates. And a day called, back in the day, they said, you're the mayor of the city for the day. Do I get to pay of the mayor for being citizen for the day? That's where we're having problems at. We have a misunderstanding about where our money's gonna come from in the future. Now, 204th Street, if you change all this, keep changing, making housing, how are we gonna generate revenue? I can't figure this out. House, but not without revenue. We depend on the federal government to pay our housing for the rest of our life. That's a good idea.
Thank you. Any other opponents today? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Motion a second. No further lights. Roll call.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Palermo. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 12, an ordinance to approve a major amendment to PUR Overlay District located at 3902 Dodge Street. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing and vote on number 12 is today. Proponents, please.
Good afternoon, Robert Griffith Full-Cam Joe Johnson Beller, 11440 Weston Road, here on behalf of the applicant. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any other proponents? Seeing any opponents?
Larry Storr, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha, 68132. I suppose this is one of those developments where we'll be taking a historic building off of Dodge Street to make room for an apartment with parking lot. Some of this is really kind of disturbing to a lot of people that want to preserve some of the buildings in Omaha, not let the developers, which are also sometimes, quite often, our realtors, have them for development and TIF projects. My main reason, it's not on the agenda, but this is going to happen with the North Saddle Creek area. I've talked to a few residents in that new district that is being created for the
Larry,
purpose.
we're talking about 3902 Dodge Street today.
And the public just really isn't informed very well. There's not enough transparency in all this. What's going in at 3902 Dodge? You could tell us on this. I don't always have time to read all your documents on the website. Neither do these people here, so they really don't know what you're talking about. Many of them probably don't know what 39th and Dodge looked like, but I do. So I'm opposed. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other opponents to number 12? Seeing none, public hearings closed. Mr. Bagley, you're recognized.
Thanks, Mr. President. Robert, can you come up for a second, please? Good afternoon. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
3902 Dodge Street, that was the Travelodge Hotel, correct?
That is correct, yes, it was.
And it was torn down and it's been vacant for how long?
I want to say at least 10, 15 years.
Okay.
Which had been some considerable issues with the neighbors surrounding it, so this is currently a vacant lot.
Okay, thanks.
You bet.
I would also just ask you, a previous representative that was here, I think maybe not of the ownership group, but involved in the project, made a commitment to clean up that property in the meantime. I know we're taking steps here to get it redeveloped, which I think is very positive, but in the meantime, it still looks pretty bad with lots of weeds and overgrown grass and things like that. Can you assure us that'll be taken care of in the meantime?
Absolutely, that'll be passed along.
Okay, thank you. Second, roll call.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Palermo. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 13, an ordinance to amend the boundaries of the ACI 265 overlay district to incorporate into that district the property located at 7130 Arbor Street. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing and vote on number 13 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents?
Larry Storr, 5015 Lafayette, Omaha, 68132. I've been driving around that area a few times over the last couple of weeks, and I'm opposed because, again, I don't think there's enough transparency. This used to be a rather large area with a large water park at 72nd and Grover area. It started out as a very small building for Marriott hotels to supply other hotels. All of a sudden, it's like a 4 or 5 block area, square, oblong, a number of different blocks. All of a sudden raised before a lot of it's even finally approved. So again, not enough transparency. If we're going to build all new hotels and apartments, let's be honest about how much of an area you're going to take instead of sneaking one in every other week after you amend it. Because like today, this is the public hearing where we can have a say. But next week, you'll have an amendment, no doubt, of the whole, which changes things, and the public doesn't get a say in it. But I remember when this started out as raise the water park and put in a small hotel for MH, which stands for Marriott Hotels, and it was only going to be a small hotel supply building. But now there's probably going to be 3 or 4 more new hotels. going
that's-
quite a ways east.
This is not that property.
Thank you.
This is
Thank you.
7130 Arbor.
Thank you for the transparency.
Any other opponents today? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Mr. Harding, you're recognized to clarify the situation, please.
Well, thank you. How'd you know I might do that? So it is transparent because it's part of the agenda and the attachments. This is not any part of the former Cocoa Keys site. This was an office building, or part of an office building complex on the corner of 72nd and Mercy, which is a little north of maybe the project that was being discussed. And this is being done by Community Alliance. It's or part of the development, I guess, actually to the west of it is Community Alliance. But a great project, not at all what was being discussed. And not only will we not be coming back next week with an amendment on it, we'll be voting on it today. So I'll let Mr. Bagley make the motion since it's in his district. But
Mr. Bagley, you're recognized.
Thanks, Mr. President. Thanks, Councilmember Harding, for articulating the facts of the location of where this is. And it's going to be a great project in addition to the one that was mentioned on 72nd and Grover Street. So I'll be glad to make a motion to support this today. Thank you.
I'll second. Ms. Melton, you're recognized.
Thanks, and just for transparency, this isn't a City of Omaha project. All we're voting on is including it in the ACI overlay, which just has to do with the materials that they have to use when building this health center. Is that correct, Mr. Fanslaw? ACI, it's just we're voting on an ACI overlay, correct?
Dave Fanslaw, City Planning, that is correct.
Okay, it's because sometimes everybody thinks that it's like the city that's building these things. That's what some of the opponents make it sound like. The taxpayers are paying for this and the taxpayers are building these things. We're literally voting on an ACI overlay requiring them to use certain materials for the building that they are paying for, Community Alliance, which I believe is a nonprofit, to provide a health center. So it's really transparent and it's attached to our agenda, which is available online on Thursdays prior to our meetings. So if there's any questions, there's plenty of time to call any one of us to get your questions answered.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second to approve. Roll call.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Palermo. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 14, an ordinance to rescind the ACI overlay district for property located east of 6th and Marcy Streets. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
The public hearing and vote on number 14 is today. Proponents, please.
Andrew Reck with Foley Shaw, representing the client today. Address 14503 Grover Street. Here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any other proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Roll call.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Palermo. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Items 15 and 16 can be considered together for property located at 1508 Marcy Street. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval. B is communication. Item 15, an ordinance to rezone this property from DS District to TOD2 MX District. Item 16, an ordinance to rescind the ACI overlay district for this property.
Public hearing and vote on items 15 and 16 are today. Proponents, please.
Dan Dozal, AR Griffin Associates, 3552 Farnham Street. We're the engineers for the job. Here to answer questions. I would like to take a second to compliment again, and I don't think it's said often enough, but the planning board, or the planning department. We do these projects, we meet with them, we get a roadmap to do. They're so helpful. I just wanted to acknowledge that. I know it's been said and thought of, but maybe not said out loud enough, so thank you.
Thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents?
Councilman Mr. Frederickson, Donnie R. Johnson, the Johnson Equestrian Foundation, Omaha Concerned Citizen Foundation. That's the problem. The planning department doesn't know what they're doing.
Yeah, I know. Any other opponents today? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Motion and a second. Roll call.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Palermo.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Items 17 and 18 can be considered together for property located at 6201 North 60th Street. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval. Item 17, an ordinance to rezone this property from R6 District and R8 District to R6 District. Item 18, an ordinance to amend the boundaries of the MCC Overlay District to incorporate this property into that district.
Public hearing and vote on items 17 and 18 are today. Proponents, please.
I'm Dwight Williams, 18304 Jones Street, 68022. I am administrative assistant at Shepherd of the Hills Lutheran Church, this property, and Pastor Diana Cool is also in attendance. We are trying to pave part of a graveled parking lot, and the planning board was very helpful in helping us negotiate this rezoning. We can answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed.
Motion to approve.
Second, roll call.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Palermo. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 19, a resolution to approve the Keyline Building Tax Increment Financing Redevelopment Project Plan located at 319 South 17th Street, an amount up to $1,010,093.
Public hearing and vote on number 19 is today. Proponents, please.
Good afternoon. Don Seaton, City Planning. This project is a comprehensive rehab of a historic building downtown, about 61,000 square feet. It's a large building, constructed in 1911. Just one block east of where we're at. We're here, County Courts, and this is the Keyline building, which if you've been eating at Bob's, you probably recognize it more from the streetscape here. As you're aware, probably one of the biggest tenants who occupied about half the building, the Douglas County Juvenile Justice System, has moved out of the building. The building needs some attention, and we have Shamrock Development, managed by Mike Moylan, stepping in to make sure that this building remains a vibrant part of our central business district. He's also the developer of the Capital District. Total project investment in downtown is about $6.9 million approximately. They're requesting $1,010,093 in TIF program support. I would note that the project is in the Urban Core Housing and Mobility Plan area. That means that a portion of the TIF revenues will be going towards the streetcar development of the streetcar project. This building is also in an extremely blighted area, designated area, so the TIF term will be 20 years for this project. It's an appropriate land use for the area. Good to see a historic building being fixed up, complies with the city's master plan. We ask for your approval.
Thank you. Any other proponents today?
Good afternoon again. Robert Griffith, Lowencamp, Jobin, Johnson Beller, 11440 West Center Road, here again on behalf of the applicant, Shamrock Development, with me as well as Mike Moylan with Shamrock. Couple quick things. Thank you, Don, again, for presenting. Great job as always. I would just like to note our gratitude to Planning Board staff and particularly Legal Department. I think if this is maybe not the first, one of the first that incorporate TIP projects that incorporates the streetcar, so there's been some things to work out with that, and they've been terrific in kind of navigating that untilled ground. So thanks to them. And then also, if there's any concerns among you about Bob's, that is staying, so that lunch can continue on because that is a good spot, certainly around this area. So with that, Mike or myself are happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents?
Mr. Smith goes to Washington. You remember that, Mr. President? Anyway, Donnie Johnson, the Johnson and Question Foundation, North Omaha Concerned Citizen Foundation. I'd like to thank Mr. Shamrock here who helped me with
Need
a
your
job.
address too.
Yeah, he helped me when I was going through rehab. But back to my point here.
Donnie, your address for the record too.
Oh, sorry?
Your address?
4928 North 52nd, and Mr. Elon Musk said if we get this thing going, we're going to Mars. So you want that address? Not yet. We're getting there. This Keyline building. I understand some of you folks are young, especially you, Mr. Begley. You're a young guy. I understand that. And Mr. Palermo. But 1963, I was coming to Omaha. I come to Omaha with my mom and dad. I had never heard of a flood downtown. Now all of a sudden the buildings downtown are flooded. But Mr. Kiewit and Dugdale, they had us in engineering classes at Macmillan in 1967. So I'm trying to figure this out. Yeah, you guys had a perfect foundation set up for Marlin Perkins in the future to build that new building that they're gonna build down there. But they set the foundation up back in the day. So that's what we did. But my point here is this. If there's water coming in downtown and it get flooded and you're spending all this money in that Flatiron building, we tried to buy it once before. Guess what? They said it's historical. But in the meantime, what about all that water coming from the Missouri River?
Key Line building we're talking about, right?
No, that's a Flatiron building. Ain't that the Flatiron?
It's not the Flatiron, no. 319
I
South 17th.
beg your pardon. I didn't wear my glasses, and I'm sorry. I apologize. But I didn't wear glasses when I was going to school because when you do the Kingsbury-Moxbury rule, you got to take the glasses off. I don't like to do that.
All right, thank you. Any other opponents today? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. The opportunity to redevelop this historic building is certainly a huge win. Motion to approve.
Motion and a second. Roll call.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Palermo. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 20, a resolution to approve the Kennedy Square East Tax Increment Financing Redevelopment Project Plan located southwest of 30th and Bristol Streets in an amount up to $1,960,000.
Public hearing and vote on number 20 is today. Proponents, please.
Yes, good afternoon, Don Seaton, Omaha City Planning. This project is located in North Omaha, just west of the North Freeway, southeast of 30th and Bristol. This is a large 6-acre site currently occupied by the Spencer Homes Public Housing Project, or previously occupied. That project is presently being demolished as we speak, and it's being demolished as part of the city's Choice Neighborhood Initiative, which uses it's a redevelopment using HUD funds. So this TIF project is basically being done in partnership with the city as a city partner. It's similar to the Highlander Phase 4 project at 75 North. It is it's primarily a housing development project, mixed income housing, total of 102 units. 51 of the units are arranged in these kind of greenish structures, a combination of sizes and shapes, single family, duplex, some row homes. The other 51 of the 102 units is located in a mixed-use structure. Have about 1,700 square feet of commercial space on the main level, plus 51 units. These units will be about 1/3 LIHTC units. That's low-income housing tax credits, or they're affordable. Be 1/3 market rate, and about 1/3 replacement units for units and for people displaced by the demolitions. This is just kind of an example of the row house configuration. Here's a perspective rendering of the mixed-use building. The developer is Brinshore Development, LLC, managed by Todd Lieberman. This is here's a site plan for that building. I'm going to leave the elevation up, I think. This total project investment in the neighborhood is about $38.7 million. They're requesting $1,960,000 in TIF support. This is in an area designated as an extremely blighted area, and the project meets the criteria for a 20-year TIF term. Project complies with the city's master plan, and we ask for your approval.
Thank you. Other proponents today?
Good afternoon, Joni Poor with the Omaha Housing Authority, 1823 Harney Street. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Other proponents?
Good afternoon, Sydney Franklin, 75 North, here as a proponent, also here to answer any questions. We're super excited to partner with the city and the Housing Authority to advance this. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Mr. Lukash, welcome back.
Oh, thank you so much. Bill Lukash, Brinshore Developments, a little odd to say that, but good. 903 South 184th Avenue Circle. Happy to partner with Omaha Housing Authority, 75 North, the City of Omaha, of course, Housing Authority, if I didn't say it already. So thank you very much. Here to answer any questions if I can. Thank you.
Thank you. Other proponents? Seeing none, any opponents?
Larry Store, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha, 68132. I guess I'm opposed to it because it seems to me like this 75 North is getting a rather large chunk out of Omaha. Everything lately seems to be related to 75 North. But my other complaint again is the lack of transparency about TIF. Oftentimes, the developer or the owner is also a real estate company. They maybe get a break on acquiring property if it's not already theirs. Then they get a break, it sounds like, on TIF. If you read the World Herald and the Omaha Reader magazine, TIF is kind of a break for developers, not for the taxpayers. And nobody wants to refute me when I say that people that live in the area are the ones that are going to pay the higher property taxes. It doesn't make sense to say you're giving the guy a break for 20 years, 15 or 20. Now they're shooting for 25. And then he'll pay for it after that period with higher property taxes. Yeah, there's some revenue taxes coming in during that time, and there's maybe a loan involved, but again, he gets the break on the loan. The people that live in the area maybe don't, and they can't get a loan from the city, and they can't freeze their property tax value for 20 years, 15, whatever you're going to end up with. They're paying a higher rate to start with, but the developer is not. And then comes along the property tax issue. We'll pay the higher property tax because of the development. He won't. Nice deal for a real estate company, isn't it? The state and the city and the county needs to have a full, open, free, transparent debate as to the truth of that. Because I'm only paraphrasing what the World Herald has said and what the Omaha Reader magazine has said. And I do believe Doug Kagan himself said it, that TIF is a break for the city, for the founding fathers, the moneymakers, the 501c3s, the nonprofits, but not for the homeowner. And people like me are maybe leaving Omaha, maybe leaving Nebraska, because you're raising my property taxes beyond the value of my house because somebody in California came in and paid way over an asking price. But you base my property tax on the sale price of that guy up the street that paid 2 or 3 times the actual value of it. That needs to be changed too. Make the tax system equitable to TIF breaks so that we all get a break. Thank you.
Any other opponents today? Seeing none, public hearings closed. Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Sydney and Joni, if you could come up, please. Sydney, I would like to give you an opportunity to sell your story about the wonderful things that you're doing in North Omaha. And Joni Poor. And Joni, if you could talk a little bit about the safety things that we've done recently to address some concerns that we had in the area, I would really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, so Kennedy Square East is the first phase of 2 phases of redevelopment activity for what's now Spencer Homes Public Housing, which is, as Don mentioned, is being demolished. 75 North is not the owner. We are not the developer in that site. We're a kind of an investor and a partner, what's called a people plan lead. That's a HUD term. We are investing in the stabilization and advancement of the people that are impacted by this choice grant. And so our interest in the success of this project is enormous. We view what we've done in Highlander as the catalyst for this activity. We know that the investments to the south of Kennedy Square East have really paved the way to allow this development to happen and for the city and the Housing Authority to submit a successful application to HUD. While this is going on, 75 North continues to do our thing. The gentleman before me is spot on. We have a lot going that we're super proud of. We are making investments in people and in a built environment, and we're super proud of that. And that's really everything that I would have to say or share is going to come from that lens. It always will. And so we're just really proud of this partnership, and I am hopeful that you will support the advancement of this project.
Thank you.
Anything else specific to what's going on in Highlander
Just
North?
wanted to give you an opportunity to give
I
us a
appreciate
broad
that.
view there. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And specifically, you wanted me to talk about some of the safety
Yeah.
changes? Sure, absolutely. So in early June, we worked along with a contractor called CVR to relocate the last household from Spencer Homes. So we had 111 households that lived there. And as you can imagine, when there is a lot of vacant property, lots of people want to come around and do things that they're not supposed to do with that vacant property, like break in or steal things or do some different things of that nature. So I'm proud to say that it is all fenced in. We have the barrier there now. Unfortunately, even though you fence in some of those properties, some people still want to use their vehicles to drive through the gates and other areas. So we actually had to put jersey wall and some other things in to prevent people from driving through the gates. Also, we had some individuals who were coming in very industriously and had headlamps and bolt cutters and things of that nature in. So we have worked very closely with the Omaha Police Department to come in and do some additional patrols in and around the Spencer Homes area as well, to hopefully curb trespassing and some of the violence that was happening on the Spencer Homes site. I think that we have received fewer complaints. If things are still happening, we haven't heard about it. So if it is still happening, we would certainly want the public to let us know so that we can continue to address that. But the police have stepped up patrols. There's a lot of activity if you've been by there. Nearly all of the buildings that are on the west side of Interstate 75 are down. I believe there's only 4 still standing. So also probably as those things progress, it becomes less desirable to be on the site. So I think all of those different changes have improved some safety in that area as well.
Thank you. Thanks again, both ladies. I really appreciate all that you're doing to the community there. It's certainly very impressive. I motion to approve. Thank you.
I'll second. No further lights. Roll call.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Palermo. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion
Thanks
passed
again.
7-0. Item 21, a resolution to approve the 48th and Dodge Tax Increment Financing Redevelopment Project Plan located southeast of 48th and Dodge Streets in an amount up to $10,750,000.
Public hearing and vote on number 21 is today. Proponents, please.
Sydney is much taller than I am. Anyway, yes, good afternoon. Don Seaton, City Planning Department. 48th and Dodge TIF project. This site probably should be fairly familiar to all of you. It's been looked at a few different times. This project is an assemblage of 13 parcels. All of the existing buildings will be demolished, mostly single-family homes along Douglas. Although the building that's on the local register, the local landmark, the Pittman building, it will be retained. And this is a view looking kind of southwest. See the Pittman building, it will serve as kind of an amenity building for the apartment complex that is being proposed, and also the leasing office. But this will be a new 5-story apartment building. It'll have about 329 1- and 2-bedroom apartment units. There'll be about 303 parking spaces inside the building. It's a view looking east. This project is also providing about $814,000 in public improvements. The developer is 4647 Dodge LLC, managed by Jared Hollinger. Total investment in the neighborhood is $82.3 million. They're requesting $10,750,000 in TIF program support. I would note that this project is in the streetcar influence area of the Urban Core Housing and Mobility Plan. So they will be contributing a portion of the TIF revenues that are generated by the project into the streetcar system. This project meets the required criteria for our TIF program. It's an appropriate land use for the area, complies with the goals of the city's master plan, and we ask for your approval.
Thank you. Other proponents today?
Thank you, Don. Good afternoon, Michael Sands, 1700 Farnham Street on behalf of the applicant. With me is Zach Reinhardt as well from the development group. Don outlined it pretty well. One thing I'd like to point out is on those renderings, we actually have some new ones that I'll forward to the city that look really sharp and even kind of incorporate the Pittman building even more. And that'll be really kind of the front door of the development and be really nice. Happy to answer any questions. We think it'll be a great addition to the area and what is now, some pretty dilapidated structures. So we respectfully ask for your approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Other proponents? Seeing none, any opponents?
City Council of Omaha, Donnie Johnson, the Johnson Equestrian Foundation, and North Omaha Concerned Citizen Foundation. Is there a story about the Fox Garden at Hen House? I heard about it. So what I'm trying to figure out here is my good friend, Mr. Richard Takechi, God rest his soul, on the city council. And I asked myself, when he became registered deed, why did all this land keep changing hand and none went in North Omaha brothers' hand? Me and Mr. Richard Takechi worked on a program in the Old Market when he was city councilman. I told him I was going back to San Francisco to see what's going on with that airport, but in the meantime, he got some things passed. So we used to have 8 meatpacking plants in South Omaha. They're gone.
So Donnie, we're talking about 48th and Dodge, right?
Can you get us some jobs like the meatpacking plant provided? Because we're always in this building, and somewhere in the Fox, they told me when I was in hair business, I was a Fox Garden, a hen house. Is this true? Such a story could be made up like that? In the meantime, we don't have any more packing houses. When are you guys going to start creating jobs?
Any other opponents today?
Larry Store, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha 68132. I'm opposed to this for a lot of reasons. I'm losing my view of Dundee for one. For a second one, it looks like you're moving from Saddle Creek clear to 50th and Dodge. It wasn't very long ago that I spoke about that, and you were probably going after my favorite gasoline station at 50th and Dodge. It looks like you are moving that way to try and justify the big Moby monster up and down that we don't see very many people riding. I have seen a couple get off at 49th and Dodge with one of the new apartments that you did build. Now we're filling in the area from Saddle Creek overpass to there. It says southeast, but what you don't say on this, unless everybody wants to look it up, is 1 block south of there. There are 3 houses that have been somehow miraculously abandoned and let run down, but there's trash all over the porches and everything. And there's some neighbors that are already upset with the traffic on that street, 1 block south, from the apartment buildings that have gone up just a couple of blocks west, including some very expensive condos in the area of $400,000 and some thousand. Not real affordable. But then there's the area a little further south and east of that will tie in exactly with the South Saddle Creek development. And not too far from the poor folks there in the area of Pacific and Mayberry, that are being told that their properties are being taken. So you can have a project that goes down to Dodge Street from 50th, down a hill, cut through their properties and put a sidewalk in. They don't want to pay for it. They don't want an alley and a street. So that many more cars from these type of apartment buildings are going to be coming right past their properties, and they're being asked to pay for it. Or are they being driven out? They're already tearing buildings down there. They're going to go downhill here pretty soon. This is going to happen on 48th and Dodge. I think the citizens are getting fed up because most of them in those areas do not actually get talked to about it. I went visiting around Dundee the other day. A lot of the people there along Saddle Creek Road haven't been to meetings, didn't hear about them. But it's going to get done. You watch. It'll be next week or the week after. And then you change it with an amendment and do something else that we can't talk about. So I'm opposed to it now while I can. You're going to ruin Dundee. You're going to ruin our view of the area south and west, east. Have you asked all the businesses along there? Yeah, of course, some of them, like Susie Buffett's Theater, would be in favor of it. But probably not the gas station, probably not the donut stores and the arts and crafts and antique stores on the corner of 50th. But it is coming. You're getting there closer to them every day. Thank you.
Any other opponents today? Seeing none, public hearings closed. Mr. Begley, you're recognized.
Thanks, Mr. President. Michael or Zach, can you come up for a minute, please?
Good afternoon, Zach Reinhardt, Access Commercial, 1303 South 72nd, Suite 209.
Good afternoon, Zach. Thanks for coming down today. Can you talk specifically about, so there's 329 units going in here, and I think it gets missed in a lot of these developments where people that oppose it are passionate and it's understood why. But some of the things I've learned on this council are trying to preserve things when developments happen. So Dr. Arthur B. Pittman was the first African-American veterinarian in the city of Omaha. So you and I talked, Zach, and I know we met last year as well to discuss this with others, the importance of trying to preserve the legacy of Dr. Pittman, who was a pioneer in the city a long, long time ago. So you could have torn that building down, but you chose not to. If you could briefly just tell the story of why you thought that you wanted to keep the face of this new development would be led by Dr. Pittman's building. Talk about that for us, please.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We could have torn down the Pittman building. Tearing down the Pittman building probably would have allowed us to build about 30 more units of housing there. That certainly would have helped the economics of a project, but we recognized very early on in this project that at some point you have to make the right decision about historic buildings. And we see the Pittman building as being the front door to our development. Every prospective resident of our project, of our property, will interact with, will encounter, will learn about the history of that building because our leasing and management office will be housed in the Pittman building. That means that if you're coming to check out an apartment or lease an apartment, you're going to come in through the Pittman building. That's the only way you're going to get in. We're going to have a wall of history to explain why it's important that we recognize and preserve a building like the first African-American veterinarian didn't just build this building, but practiced in this building until he retired in 1990. So he practiced in this building for 40 years. It was built late in the 40s. So it's not just a matter of saving something old for the sake of saving something old. It's recognizing that someone made an investment in this area, the same place that we want to make an investment, and honoring that investment that they made that was, quite frankly, historic at the time.
Thanks for that explanation. And that's the importance is to preserve and keep that as part of the project. I think that's a great thing that is being invested here with this redevelopment. And also, the long term, you have the streetcar, you got the bus service, the Orbit line, potential a project next down at the Med Center. You can walk to Dundee. You can probably walk up to Blackstone if you want to get a little bit of a hike. There's a lot of great things in this area that the redevelopment, it'll contribute to all these things in a great location. So again, I appreciate the extra work that was put in to recognizing Dr. Pittman, and that wall of history, when you walk into the front door there, it's going to display that, and people will know who Dr. Pittman was because you chose to preserve that building as part of this project and not tear it down. I'll be making a motion to support this today. Thanks.
I'll second that motion. No further lights. Roll call.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Palermo.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 21, a resolution to approve a major amendment to the special use permit located southwest of 120th Street and Rainwood Road. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing and vote on number 22 is today. Proponents, please.
Zachary Mahon with SCS Engineers, 14755 Grover Street, here on behalf of the applicant who is also in attendance today. The request before you is to renew the special use permit that has existed for the property since 2008. Prior to this permit, we have also sought and received approval from the Nebraska Department of Environment and Energy to operate a construction and demolition waste debris landfill, which meets the same definitions as non-protrusible. And I'm here to answer any additional questions or just concerns that you have.
Thank you. Any other proponents today on number 22? Seeing none, any opponents?
Been sitting so long, going through all these behaviors. Excuse me, Donnie R. Johnson, the Johnson Equestrian Foundation, and North Omaha Concerned Citizen Foundation. Sir, and gentlemen, ladies, here's a problem we have on this progress. The Black Museum, Mr. Pittman, and all those folks are wonderful.
So we're talking about 12221 Rainwood Road, number 22, right?
It's all in the same progress of what you guys been doing.
No, you have to speak to this particular item.
Well, can I ask you a question, Mr. Ferguson?
No.
Okay, well then, let's go back to, in 21, you talking about?
We're on number 22.
22. Agricultural district that you're talking about? I want to make sure because I'm trying to figure out why we keep getting statues. We can't eat them. We can't eat pictures. That's all we're getting. History of stuff we can't eat or use.
This is a special use permit for number 22.
Another picture of an African American that we can't eat or sell? Is that what you're finna sell us?
No, that's not
okay.
it. Any other opponents on number 22? Seeing none, public hearing's closed. Ms. Melton, you're recognized.
Oh, thanks. Sir, if I could just have you just reconfirm something for me really quick. Could you just make sure you say it on the record that you're only using this for a landfill and you won't be doing anything else at the landfill?
So the applicant is and does intend to use it as a landfill. As part of those operations, to maximize the value of the landfill, they do divert market viable recyclable materials from the landfill and stockpile those for movement off-site.
Well, I think that's good. That's good for the environment. I just want to make sure there's no crushing of concrete or anything industrial going on there.
Correct. So I believe you're making reference to some communications we have had with the planning department regarding the crushing of concrete. We did take, or they do separate concrete debris from the landfill, and we had a mobile crusher on site. The planning department communicated to us that their interpretation of the code is that that's not an allowed activity. Once we were informed of that, we ceased operations, and that concrete crusher is off-site. And we certainly have been and intend to comply with planning department and work on only using the property for approved uses.
Okay, thank you. No, I appreciate that.
Yep.
Thanks for putting that on the record. I appreciate it.
No further lights. Is there a motion? Motion and a second. Roll call.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Palermo. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 23, to consider a Class CK liquor license for Two Fine Irishmen located at 18101 R Plaza.
Public hearing and vote on number 23 is today. Proponents, please.
Good afternoon, members of the council. My name is Scott Lautenbaugh, 16407 Taylor Street. I'm the attorney representing the applicant and Mr. Longcourt here, the manager. This is an existing license. This is just a transfer to new ownership. We'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Great, thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents?
I've been wanting to wrestle a lawyer for a long time. He'd be a good one to start with. Yes, sir. Donnie R. Johnson, the Johnson and Question Foundation, opposing more liquor license versus us creating jobs. So you guys, who screwed up the meatpacking plant? Oh, I take that back. I apologize. Mr. Steve Rosenblatt told me before he left and moved to Arizona, he said, Donnie, I feel sorry for the first African American on the city council. I'm glad you didn't win, and Fred Conley did, because I like you. But in the meantime, we need to start looking at this process of what Marty Schuler said. Let's create some jobs, because who's going to pay for all this stuff? And guess what I found out the other day when I was walking the street? This guy came here from New York, but he actually said he was from Mars, and a guy got shot 44 times. They're living on our street. We want some land so we can protect ourselves from these people that's coming from Mars. Or is that true story about the police that some guy was shot 44 times?
All right, Donnie, we're talking about a liquor license on number 23.
I think he had some liquor. That was a problem.
Okay. Any other opponents on number 23? Public hearing's closed. Mr. Rowe, you're recognized.
I'd like to make a motion for approval.
Motion and a second. Roll call.
Rowe.
Yes.
Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Palermo. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 24, to consider a Class CK liquor license for Chinchorro Boricua located at 3018 South 32nd Avenue. A's Communications in opposition.
Public hearing and vote on number 24 is today. Proponents, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ellie Bershal. I'm the owner of Chinchorro Boricua, 1318 South 32nd Avenue. I'm here for answer any question. Thank you so much for consideration.
Thank you. Any other proponents today?
My name is Chevy Kozacek, and I own a small business at 3050 South 32nd Avenue. I am the Skin Studio South. It's a little day spa, and we are very much looking forward to having Ellie in the neighborhood with us as far as the small businesses that are developing there. A lot of my clients and my neighbors and my friends in the neighborhood and the Field Club neighborhood seem to be looking forward to Ellie opening up the restaurant as well. So,
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Mr. Palermo, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will say we spoke about this earlier today, hopefully in favor. Obviously, that area that you're moving into is very unique and a tradition for a lot of us in the neighborhood. So I'm certainly going to wish you luck, and when you're open, I'll make sure I drag some colleagues down your way to enjoy. Motion to approve.
Thank you so much.
Motion and a second. Roll call.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Palermo. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
Thanks.
Item 25, to consider a Class I liquor license for Canara located at 120 Regency Parkway, Suite 124.
Public hearing and vote on number 25 is today. Proponents, please.
Mr. President, Councilman, I am Cynthia Epstein. I'm the attorney for the applicant. My address is 11516 Nicholas Street, and they are opening a Indian restaurant in the Regency Shopping Center and are applying for a liquor license that we would request your approval. And if you have any questions, let us know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other proponents that want to speak today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Motion and a second. Roll call.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Palermo. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 26, to consider a liquor license addition application for Horseman's Park located at 6303 Q Street for a temporary casino building.
Public hearing and vote on number 26 is today. We have the proponent by Zoom, Mr. Falson. We'll get you off mute here in a second. Try that.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, members of the council. Hopefully you can hear me fine. Mark Falson, 1128 Lincoln Mall, Lincoln, Nebraska, appearing on behalf of the applicant, Nebraska Horsemen's Benevolent and Protective Association. This is for an existing license. It's simply an expansion or an addition, if you will, for a temporary building we're constructing in the infield for purposes of a casino operation.
Great, thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Second. Motion and a second. Roll call.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Palermo. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
Thank you.
Consent agenda. Any member of the city council may cause any item placed on the consent agenda to be removed. Items removed from the consent agenda shall be taken up by the city council immediately following the consent agenda in the order in which they were removed, unless otherwise provided by the city council rules of order.
Public hearings on agenda items number 27 through 31 were held on September 27th. No further lights. Motion and a second. Roll call.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Palermo. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
The public hearings on agenda items number 32 through 44 are today. If you wish to address the city council regarding these items, please come to the microphone, indicate the agenda item number you wish to address, identify yourself by name, address, and who you represent, and if you are a proponent or an opponent, I will note for council members that we have proponents available for questions on number 32 and 33. And I will ask Mr. Kiedis to come down to provide some information on number 35 to get us started here. I was interested in this particular agenda item myself, realizing it talks about Omagro and purchasing some polyethylene bags, I think, to package the yard waste that we have and that we're recycling. But I was also going to take this opportunity to give you a little bit of time to update folks on the Omaha Grow program and then also the upcoming yard waste pickup collection times.
Sure. Jim Key, Public Works Department. So the Omaha season, we'll say, for the fall season does begin here at the end of October. October 24th is when that'll begin. That'll go through the week past Thanksgiving, so December 2nd is when that'll wrap up. And during that time period, residents can place an unlimited number of compostable yard waste bags at the curb on their day of collection. That material will be separately collected and brought down to our Omaha facilities for composting. This particular item, number 35, is for purchasing the polyethylene bags that we package the finished compost into. So this is the means to get the finished product to the residents so that they can place it in their gardens or their yards or wherever they're using it. So we typically, I think last year we went through around 60,000 bags. We've already gone through 40,000 this year, so this is just kind of replenish that supply so we can continue to package the material and get it out to the local vendors so that residents and their consumers can pick it up.
I know it's a popular product. How is what is the status of our Omaha operation and the outlook for product this fall?
The outlook's very good. I mean, we're collecting material currently. We have a lot of residents that self-haul down to us. The spring season yielded quite a bit of yard waste to our facility. November is our biggest time of year when we get the most material because that's when leaves are falling. And so last year we saw around 4,000 tons just in November. So for a total of that year around 6,500 to 7,000 tons. So this is our November, our fall season will be our bulking up time when we get most of our material. We've had to we've changed a little bit our procedures to modify the amount of material that we're getting in. We are seeing less than what we had previously because of our redeveloped program, but we're still creating a viable compost. We're still meeting the nutrient levels that we're putting on the packaging so that people know when they pick up the compost, it is, the nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium percents are still the same, and they can still use that product how they had used it in the past.
Great. And the site in Sarpy County is still viable and operational for the foreseeable future, right?
Absolutely. They're still bagging and still creating compost.
Great. Thank you. Any other proponents or opponents to 32 through 44 today?
You finished there, Shirley? Donnie Johnson, the Johnson and Question Foundation, and North Omaha Concerned Citizen Foundation. I realize some of you folks are very young.
So which item are you testifying to, Donnie?
Let's start with number 32, Mr. Dan Lynch area down in Florence, when he was state senator. You know that guy?
That's not Florence. That's 130th and West Center.
Yeah, but they stole his name, Kelly. Kelly Tires down there at Florence. They've been stealing a lot around here, this satellite. Who's going to pay for that? See, we're trying to figure this out. Dan Lynch, he's out of Florence, and Kelly. Are they the same people?
You have to speak to a specific agenda item, Donnie, number
That's what I
32
was
through
trying to tell you
44.
guys. Maybe it'd be a lot more helpful if you guys wasn't so young. Under Mr. Dan Lynch program, and Florence, and Kelly here, and the Kinos, that's not bringing any money in, and all the Jersey Shoremen are shutting down casinos, and you guys are still moving in a direction, and we're trying to figure out why Nebraska got in casino business and Keno when everybody's shutting them down. And we're trying to figure out if you guys are going to ever start passing out medical marijuana license for us African Americans.
Any other testifiers on these items today, 32 through 44? Seeing none, public hearing's closed. I'll second. Roll call.
Rowe, Bagley, Harding, Johnson, Melton, Palermo. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Items 45 through 47 can be considered together for agreements with Union Pacific Railroad.
Public hearing and vote on items 45, 46, and 47 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Motion and a second. Roll call.
Rowe, Bagley, Harding, Johnson, Melton, Palermo. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0. Johnson abstains. Item 48, a resolution to approve the reappointment of Lavanya Goodwin as a member of the North 24th Street Business Improvement District Area Board to serve a 3-year term from November 26, 2022 to November 25th, 2025.
Public hearing and vote on number 48 is today. Proponents, please. Pastor Lassiter, welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Ralph Lassiter, Pastor Emeritus, Mount Moriah Baptist Church, 2602 North 24th Street. I stand in support of item number 48, the reappointment of Ms. Lavanya Goodwin to the North 24th Street Business Improvement District Association or Area Board for a 3-year term from November 26, 2022 until November 25th of 2025. In November of 2019, I was invited to a community meeting that was hosted by Habitat. And at that meeting, there were approximately 85 members of the North Omaha community representing businesses, property owners, residents, and renters of properties. At that meeting, information was shared about the possibility for the creation of an entity that I was somewhat familiar with, and that was the development of a business improvement district. I say that I was familiar with it because previously, as an employee of HDR, I had served to help the Downtown Improvement District develop its strategic plan. At that meeting, information was presented. The question was asked, who's interested in serving to develop a business improvement district for North 24th Street? Only a few individuals indicated that they were interested. As a pastor and as one who's concerned not just about the spiritual health of individuals who live in North Omaha, but also their economic and social improvement, I volunteered to participate. Work occurred and the BID was approved by this council. The work that has been accomplished occurred only because of the leadership of Ms. Lavanya Goodwin. I provided a letter to each of you. It is, or could be, displayed on the screen by the individuals who are able to handle such. Essentially, as you can see, Ms. Goodwin led the BID in the development of strategic plans, led the development of specific goals and objectives, and since those objectives have been created, we've actually achieved an amazing amount of progress in those areas. North 24th Street is cleaner. The rate of crime has decreased, and we've made significant progress in terms of creating an environment for the development of new businesses. One of the things that is underway now that you will probably hear more about in the future is a streetscape plan that will, in a very transformational way, change the very nature of North 24th Street. It'll make it more walkable, it'll make it safer, it'll make it brighter, it'll make it more attractive to businesses and residents. Because of all of those things and all those actions on the part of Ms. Goodwin, I stand in support of her reappointment. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Other proponents today?
Good afternoon, members of the council. Ben Swan, 3515 Hawthorne Avenue. I had the opportunity to meet with Lavanya Goodwin and her husband Dan around 2019, maybe even 2018. And in the last 3 to 4 years, I've seen somebody who's one of the most tireless workers and volunteers, and somebody who puts themselves out for litter pickup, for holding herself and her family to a high standard in an area where a lot of people just write off North 24th Street in North Omaha and say, hey, this is the way it's been, this is the way it's going to be. She holds everybody to the standard that she holds herself, which is uncomfortable for me and for other people sometimes. But she puts herself out there. There's a lot of people in North Omaha with dreams and aspirations who are doing good things. She's one of them who's just been tireless and deserves to be reappointed, has got an incredible amount of momentum going for the BID, is bringing in other people who want to participate in this and be a part of this improvement. And I'm just thankful to be one of those people that helps support her. Thank you.
Thank you. Other proponents today?
Donnie Johnson, the Johnson and Question Foundation, North Omaha Concerned Citizen Foundation. In 1973, I met this young man who was going to Iowa State, Mr. Dan Goodwin, and my son who went to Iowa State playing football. And he gave up a career to help his community. So I think I know very much about him. I'm not so sure about his new family life, but I know he was an outstanding young man at Central High School, Mr. Dan Goodwin Jr. here. I believe that's him. But in the meantime, I like to support this. I think some of these programs that I ran into back in the 70s, and he gave up a career at Iowa State to work with the community, is a good sacrifice. Now my son, he left Iowa State because one of them Iowesians gave him a black eye.
Other proponents here today?
Daniel M. Goodwin Jr., 3116 North 24th Street, and Lavanya Goodwin's husband. But I'm here today to speak from a different perspective as her husband of almost 30 years. Due to courtesy of COVID, I'm able to firsthand, because we both work from home in the same space, I'm able to have a ringside seat to see her passion, her dedication, and commitment to the community and the excellence for the BID. Each and every one of you, if you had such a citizen in your district or a constituent in your district, you would love to have someone like Lavanya Goodwin, because as has already been pointed out, she is tireless, she's passionate, and above all, she's a person of integrity. So please support her in this continuing leadership of the 24th Street Business Improvement District. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Other proponents for number 48? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ms. Goodwin, if you would come up, please. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Lavanya Goodwin, 3116 North 24th Street.
Thank you. Ms. Goodwin, I just wanted to acknowledge your work on the corridor, and thank you for the tireless time that you spent in the area. And I will go ahead and motion to approve.
Second?
Thank you.
Motion and a second. No further lights. Roll call.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Palermo. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 49, a resolution to approve an amendment to the Crossroads subdivision agreement.
Public hearing and vote on number 49 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents?
Larry Store, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha, 68132. I haven't had time to do a lot of research on this. I don't quite understand who the master property owners are. But as I drive by that often on both sides, Dodge and Calf Street, I wonder about the property owners just across Calf Street to the north and going west from 72nd. Are they included in the master property owners, or is this only business people that are master property owners? I remember seeing Lockwood development all over the place out there. And by the way, I've also noticed that there's very little activity going on. So I wonder what's going on with it. Doesn't tell me very much on the website. The attachment doesn't. But I see a lot of people kind of standing around out there kicking their toes in the dust. A little bit of dust down on the far west end of it. A couple of great big holes there yet. It's been a long time since this was passed, and a long time since things were started. I think the public has a right to know why it's progressing so slowly, and are the other TIF projects going to progress this slow? I see a couple of them, the people have withdrawn their applications. I wonder how many people have withdrawn applications. And now I'm facing maybe one only just a couple of blocks from me on Saddle Creek. Yes, there's some things there that need to be cleaned up.
This is Crossroads, Larry, and I'll give you an update here in a second.
Thank you, Mr. Festers.
All right. Any other opponents today on number 49?
Donnie Johnson, 4928 North 52nd Street, Omaha, Nebraska. The Johnson Equestrian Foundation and North Omaha Concerned Citizen Foundation. My cousin, the Italiano, says we should drink no wine until it's time. Now, back to 72nd Street, Mr. Brenstadt, and I was teaching over there. That's why you was right, Mr. Fredrickson, when you said it's going to take a little time to fix 72nd and Dodge. But what I was concerned about is, I think I'll hold that thought, because I think you was on the right page when I look at 72nd, and I wondered two things. When Mr. Brenstadt, Governor Brenstadt, was appointed to governor of China, and the students that I was teaching over at that area, I'm asking, are you guys investing heavier over here? I was teaching over there on 72nd to the international students. They said Brenstadt over in China is putting a whole bunch of money. Ain't none of my business, but I'd like to ask you a question about that story about we should drink no wine till it's time.
Johnny, it's got to be about Crossroads, number 49. Come on.
The Crossroads? You ain't figured that one out yet?
All right.
Okay, I'll say that the next time, sir.
All right, thank you. Any other opponents today? Public hearing's closed, so a quick update on Crossroads itself. This is the agreement that amends an agreement for the subdivision plan that's already been approved by the City Council. And if you've been by Crossroads recently, you'll know there's massive development happening there every day right now with construction by the development team who's proceeding as intended and as previously approved several months ago. There will be more documents coming to the City Council by the end of the year to continue that massive development, which I think is a very positive thing for the community and certainly for my district and certainly for the surrounding neighborhoods. All this does today is correct some language that allows for 3 speed bumps to be installed on 74th Avenue into the neighborhood as was intended and as was previously discussed by this council in the public hearing, and by which the developer is strongly in support of as well. That's it. I can't motion, but I'll take a motion. Thank you. There's a motion and a second. Roll call.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Palermo. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 50, an ordinance to approve a street name change in the Hamptons addition to change N Street to Lakeview Street.
Public hearing on number 50 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item 51, an ordinance levying a special tax assessment for condemned buildings or structures, group number 2022-01.
Public hearing on number 51 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Don, are you a proponent to 51?
51, sir?
Are you in support of this item?
I'm supporter of the City Council of Omaha, and good luck all the work you guys are doing.
Okay, thank you. We're on opponents now to number 51. Any opponents to 51? See none, public hearing is closed.
Item 52, Brink Building Group appeals the rejection of their bid from September 14th, 2022 for OPW 53425 Mercy Road over Papio Creek Bridge Rehabilitation Project.
This is a bid rejection appeal. We'll take the comments from the company who's appealing. Name and address for the record, please.
Good afternoon, distinguished members of the City Council. My name is Mark Rood, 7509 Trumbull Avenue with Brink Building Group. I am here this afternoon to appeal the Brink Building Group rejected bid for project OPW 53425 Mercy Road over the Papio Creek due to Brink's failure to include Brink's EEIP plan in its supporting bid documents. Brink has become aware of this error and has submitted the necessary EEIP items with this letter for further consideration with Jared Anderson. Brink Construction was a low and successful bidder despite the circumstances mentioned here. The city engineer's estimate was $629,000. Brink's successful bid was under this estimate. The next lowest bidder was $708,000, which would require all bids to be disqualified, and the city would need to rebid the project to meet the City of Omaha engineer's estimate. It is my hope that you are able to accept Brink's bid and allow Brink to perform this project. With my deepest apologies, I hope you reconsider Brink's bid and accept it for this project. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We'll now take perspective of the city. I think it's probably the Public Works Department, or is the Law Department that wants to speak to? I see Ms. Tippy Pierce there in the audience. And then we'll see if council members have questions.
Heather Tippy Pierce, Public Works. As is our usual practice for large projects like these, we do include in the bid form a checklist of items that are required with the bid. That did include information to the bidders that an EEIP was a required document as a part of the bid. Brink's bid was submitted without that EEIP per our specification in the ordinance. We therefore rejected the bid and support the denial of this appeal.
Thank you. Ryan?
Ryan Weeson, Assistant City Attorney. I'll also add just briefly that the relevant code section that is applicable here is Omaha Municipal Code Section 10-160.2, paragraph A, which states in relevant part, any bidder submitting a bid to the city for a contract as defined in subsection 10-160.1, subparagraph B, shall submit contemporaneously with the bid. So this requires the submission of the EIP plan contemporaneously with the bid. It does not allow the EIP plan to be submitted after the fact.
Okay. Thank you. Council members, Mr. Palermo, you're recognized.
Ryan, don't go for it. Thank you, Mr. President. So, because we don't have an electronic bidding system, I've become besides the law department, the foremost expert on section 10-110, which is the rejection of bids, unfortunately. So, Ryan, that was a great thing you had up there on the OMO, but there was one part that I had a question about that you didn't go far enough into. And what it says is, if the department director decides to reject all bids because the bids received are over budget, or because circumstances have changed, the department director shall send written notice to all bidders that the city is not proceeding with the award. What I thought I heard from Mark Rood, was that the engineer's estimates, he was the only bid below that. So can you tell me if that's true or not?
Ryan Weiss, Assistant City Attorney. I don't have the knowledge of specifically what the engineer's estimate was or what the other bids were. I would say, though, that with respect to your comment about what else is in Section 10-110, is that that does permit the department director to reject bids if everything is over budget. I would say that there is a difference between what is budgeted and what the engineer estimates the project will cost. Section 10-110 also does not mandate the department director to reject bids if all bids are submitted over an engineer's estimate or over what is budgeted. The director has the discretion to perhaps move money around where is possible, or if bids are submitted and they are just barely over budget, the department director could proceed with that award subject to mayoral and council approval. So Section 10-110 does not mandate the rejection of bids if they come in over the engineer's estimate.
Okay, well, thank you for that. But it also doesn't determine if there'll be a change order on the bid, which would take it drastically over. As we know, we see quite occasionally, including with agenda item number 37 today, where we have a change order on a bridge repair, similar to this, for over $200,000 more. So it really makes me think, when we talk about the engineer's estimates, and if the director has the authority just to spend the city money as he wishes, then what would be the purpose of rolling out of the contracts and trying to figure out what we should pay as a city? So we know we can pick Section 10-110 apart. We have. We've been right here with the majority of us on the council picking this apart. And if you don't believe me, go ahead and pull it up. We made changes back in 7/20/21 when we had a company in front of us that submitted a bid, and because of the lawyers they had with them, we changed this section. So I can read it and I appreciate it, and I totally understand how you're trying to explain it to me. But the bottom line is, it depends on how you view this section, and it depends on if you want to change it tomorrow, because we can do that. We've already shown that. And then when we look at the EEIP not being included, then we have to determine, was it a substantially defect or was it a minor defect? I don't see it in here. So because I don't see it in here, I don't know what part it would fall under. And if it was a minor defect, then why wouldn't I ask if it's over what we want to pay as a city, then reject all the bids and bring it back to save $90,000. Let me say that again, to save $90,000. This isn't just to say it, it's to actually save money. This is real money. This is a bid that we're going to approve or not, but we could possibly save $90,000. So would anybody from Public Works like to correct me on what I just said if it is not right?
Ryan Weiss, Assistant City Attorney. With respect to the Public Works Department, who may want to clarify answers to your questions on the budgeted amounts or the amounts that the respective bidders came in, I would like to clarify just a couple of things with respect to Section 10-110, the rejection of bids. The first instance is when there is any reference to a correctable error in this section. It relates to bid rejections as determined by the bid opening committee. There's a difference between rejections by the bid opening committee, which look at bid security and bid bonds, and therefore that language about what is a correctable error with respect to bid security is present for rejections made by the bid opening committee, but those references to correctable errors are not made earlier in the section, the first paragraph, when it refers to rejections made by department directors. So language pertaining to correctable errors are specific to rejections made by the bid opening committee, and that's different from rejections made by the department director. With respect to section 10-110, it does state for sentence that the city reserves the right to reject any or all bids for any city purchase or contract. So when a bid is rejected for failing to meet specifications or failing to meet other requirements that are set forth by ordinance, that authority is permitted and allowed and given to a department director in this instance. And I'll turn it over to the Public Works Department to answer your question with respect to specific dollar amounts about bidders in this instance.
Okay, one more question for you, Ryan, please, before we go to Heather. So, I understand this section again. So, because the EIP could be read, depending, shall, will, won't, as a minor defect, could I change this code to have that part put in there, to not have it apply when a bid is less than the other bids? You know, could we change this code to then accept this lower bid? Yes or no?
Ryan Wason, Assistant City Attorney. It would be the Law Department's opinion that the provisions relating to inclusion of the Economic Equity and Inclusion Plan is not a minor defect, and it is not permissive for the council to waive it. With respect to your question about does the council have the authority by ordinance to change section 10-160.2 or section 10-110, yes, the council does have the authority to request a new ordinance be drafted after 3 readings and approval by a majority of the council and the mayor. Those sections could be changed to allow that to be a plan that could be submitted after the fact or could be a correctable error. I believe that could probably be done.
Okay, thank you. Heather, please.
Heather Tibby Pierce, Public Works. So there was 2 questions, if I understand, at hand. One is regarding the amounts between the bidders. And just for the sake of clarity, I do, and I know this is really tiny print and I apologize, but I do a form with every bid evaluation for our department indicating all of the required documents and securities, et cetera, for the bid in comparison to each vendor, as well as their price and then responsiveness and then subsequent rank. So when it comes to this bid, there were a number of items that were required at the time of bid, and I have a copy of Brink's bid form that they submitted. And you can see in their bid form, as is standard language, all of the items in Article 7 that are attachments to the bid. These are the items that are submitted with and made a condition of the bid. And you can clearly see that the EIP is listed there as to be provided by the bidder. That was not provided by Brink Building Group. These are items, EEIP, participation in the AIF, the responsible contractor compliance form, the SEB. These are all items that are required by ordinance. We would not consider any of these to be minor defect if missing. Something that might be required as a part of the specification, by example, this certificate of compliance form, maybe that wasn't filled out quite right and we requested more information, that might be a minor defect. But these items are all required as attachments to the bids to at least be addressed. And as we continue through Brink's bid, you can see here the SEB form was attached and completed. The certificate of compliance form was attached and completed. The RC1 the apprenticeship incentive, AIF. And when we come to the EEIP, we put a fly sheet in there reminding the vendor that they are to attach their fully completed narrative. There is nothing. So in that evaluation process, and as I denoted on that spreadsheet I showed earlier, we found that to be non-responsive to the specifications and the ordinances. That's why we rejected them. We as a department understandably are concerned, and if we move forward, we'll have to figure out the difference, but the other vendors in this bid did remit all of the required documents. And in order to keep a level playing field, we had to keep that in consideration in the rejection of this bid.
Okay, thank you. Do you have a list of the bids we received for this project, OPW 53425, that you could show me on the overhead?
So I have the high level, I don't have the detail, but I do have the high level tabulation. And I keep a copy of this. This is similar to what you would see on the purchasing department's website that show that total as of bid opening. And then when we go through and do the line item tabulation through our software, it will correct any prices based on extension errors, because per our specification, unit price controls. So I will indicate any corrections on this sheet. And as you can see, there was a slight correction with Brinks with bid. So their actual bid value based on unit prices was $615,908. And then we had JMN at $708,900, Brana at just over $1 million, and Iowa Civil at $1.2 million.
So regardless of how this goes, thankfully there's one fairly close. Otherwise, this would cost the city of Omaha $400,000. So back to the part of section 10-110, rejection of bids. I understand that the director is not required or mandated to reject all bids, but that person certainly could. What is the estimated cost for this project? What are we saying as a city we would like to see? And if anybody's over this, then we certainly have the option to reject these bids. I mean, I've seen it in front of us before where we've rejected every single bid. So I know it does happen. I'm just wondering about this particular agenda item.
Heather Tippy Pierce, Public Works. So per the engineer's estimate, in our planning processes, we had estimated around $630 for this bridge rehabilitation project. When we receive bids that are over estimate, as Mr. Wiesen alluded to, the department and the department, our department and the finance department can work together to look at the sum total of our projects, where maybe, if we're using bond funding for these types of projects or bridge rehabilitation projects, if a project is a little over, there might be another project that's a little under, so we can kind of do that cost accounting that way to accommodate overages. If it's beyond the tolerance of the finance department and the department director, we can and have rejected all bids. So as we go forward with this evaluation, the first step was determining responsiveness, and then we can go back and take a look as far as award recommendations.
Okay, thank you. So here's where we're at for Brinks. Sure would be nice if you had put that EEIP in, Mark, when you're supposed to, even though I consider it a minor defect, maybe even better, a correctable error, because what I've read in the emails is we actually do have it in hand as the city of Omaha now. But and we've heard that these possibly are over, and it's really disturbing to me when I know I approved one today that's a change order on a bridge, similar, for $200,000 more. We all did. 37. So I know it's going to cost 90,000 more, and I wonder what the change orders will bring forward. I guess I'll have to really pay attention. Continue to bid for the city. Hopefully, by the time you put in another bid, we'll have an electronic bidding system, and it won't let you go any further. It's going to stop you. It's going to stop you and say, either put it in here or you're not going to be able to put a bid in. But I still stand by my minor correctable error, and I'll be voting against this. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Harding, I believe your light's on. And I was also just note that Mr. Kuzi, I believe, has his light on if you want to recognize him at some point.
I'd be more than honored to recognize Mr. Kuzi first.
Matt Kuzi, Law Department. I just wanted to reiterate or say, Mr. Wiesen made this point, but I think maybe I'll phrase it in a different way. When we're talking about minor defects and correctable errors and substantial noncompliance, the issue with this particular bid, and again, Mr. Wiesen pointed this out, so I'm just, I guess, saying it in a different way, which lawyers are prone to do. The ordinance, a separate ordinance, it doesn't say may or anything like that, it says shall. So if an EEIP is not submitted at the time that the bid is turned in, it shall be rejected. There's no wiggle room on it, it has to be rejected. The previous ordinance that was being referenced, 10-110, talks about minor defects, and minor defects were, as Mr. Palermo alluded to, was the bid bond security with a company check that occurred approximately a little over a year ago with that incident. This type of error isn't listed as a minor defect. It's a flat out no, it has to be rejected if this is not included when the bid is turned in. If the council were to grant the appeal, I think that, I guess, kind of catch-22 that would happen would be it gets referred back to the department, but the department, Public Works, would be back in the same situation of when the bid was turned in, there's no EEIP, so the bid would have to be rejected again because the code prohibits it. So again, that's all things Mr. Wiesen said. I just thought I'd take another stab at explaining it in my way.
Thanks, Mr. Kuzi. So along those lines, a couple comments, and that was what I was in part what I was going to say, is that the EEIP is by ordinance not a minor defect, and it shall be a reason for rejection. Another point I was going to say is that, and I wanted to make sure what we're talking about here today is really just the bid rejection appeal, and talking about maybe the difference in prices, which are all kind of interesting and appropriate conversations to have, but not necessarily on subject to this. But I will go down that road a little bit further in saying that this is just the bid rejection appeal. When the actual award of the bid comes to us, we could vote as a council or as an individual on the council. You can vote to not accept that, to not award that work, and that is a separate process than what we're talking about here. So I mean, some of these conversations we're having, my point is, some of these conversations we're having about the pricing and things of that nature might be more appropriate when we're talking about the awarding of the bid, because what we're really doing here, again, is just the bid rejection appeal. And when we start going down the rabbit hole of hypotheticals and change orders and, Brink's and by the way, no relation, Brink and any other group could have change orders. It's not just those other than Brink might have change orders. So again, I think it's dangerous to go down some of those hypotheticals. And again, going back to the engineer's estimates, if we feel, if the department director and the department felt that it was something to go ahead with, but we as a council or individuals as council members can voice a different opinion when that award comes to us, assuming that if the bid rejection appeal is denied. One other caveat, and completely, again, not necessarily related to what we're talking about here today, but I assume there's a little concrete work involved in this project, and I would caution us to, if we're looking at it, what the bid estimate might be, or the engineer's estimate might be today versus when this was originally looked at or calculated, there is a cement shortage, which is a component of concrete. There has been, and now, especially with some of the natural disasters that have occurred in the last week, I think cement's going to be rationed even more. So, but again, we can make that decision as a council or individuals as a council, individuals on the council, when the award for this contract may come to us at some future point.
Thank you. Ms. Melton, you're recognized.
Thank you. And I just want to we keep calling it EEIP, but it stands for Economic Equity and Inclusion Program. And if we want to lay this over, and I mean, Ms. Johnson and Mr. Palermo would want to change the ordinance so that the Economic Equity and Inclusion Program is not a requirement, which is required by Section 160, that could be done. But right now, it's a special requirement aside from Section 110. So unfortunately, it's a legality that can't be argued around because minor defects are found in 110. This is a requirement under 10-160. So we would actually need to withdraw that. I have a feeling that the Human Rights and Relations Department would not be very favorable because I think they find that the Economic Equity and Inclusion Program is extremely important to the SEB program. So I guess if we would be making a statement today as to, and by the way, this may be, and Mr. Festerson, correct me if I'm wrong, but in all the years that we've been on here, in 10 years, there had to be at least 10, if not more of these. Could be more around 20 that we've had to reject because it wasn't included. So this would be the first one that we haven't. So we've set a precedence in following our own ordinance, which is actually what we're required to do when we take our oath as city council people. We're required to actually follow the law that has been set by prior councils and our council. If we don't like the law, then we need to change the law. So that's what I'm saying. If you don't like it, then we need to change it. But right now, the EEIP is considered something extremely important. It's not considered minor. It's not considered minor by the Human Rights and Relations Department. It was not considered minor by the council when we were passing this as a requirement and as part of the SEB program. We've talked about making changes to the SEB. I don't know that that's one you necessarily want to make, and I'm not going to have an opinion on that one right now. But if you want to say that having an equity and inclusion program is minor, we can change it, and we can say that it's not something that's required to be included. I agree, once we get the electronic bidding, we won't have to have these anymore because I absolutely hate it. I've hated every one from the very first one that we had to deny that I think Mr. Palermo may have been even before your time. I don't like this, but we have to have requirements and we have to follow the requirements. And by the way, we have to be equitable and fair to all the bidders. So we've denied all the other ones before. I can't imagine saying, well, in this case, we're going to make an exception when we've never made one before. And I think it puts the city in a very difficult legal position. Mr. Kuzi, am I wrong on that?
Matt Kuzi, Law Department. When a bid rejection such as this is done and it changes the circumstances of the bid award, that can subject the city to liability from a lawsuit.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Palermo.
Thank you, Mr. President. Sometimes you got to clear up what you say because things are just said and it's spun out of context. So I'm going to clear that up. Not against or willing to take out the EEIP as part of this. What I said was, it's now been delivered. We now have it, which means at the opening of bids, it would have been, to me, minor, not saying if they never included it that we should accept this. See, sometimes people just get up here and talk, and then that's the gospel, and that's just not the truth. What I said was, we now have it. It was turned in late. So I would never be for approving a project that didn't have it. And when we talk about following the law, we didn't follow the law. Because this council went against the law department's recommendation not to approve something. And it changed everything from here on out. And that's why I've been so vocal about this. Because we do have the right. We could bring this up for 3 readings, and we could say, hey, if you put in your EEIP after the bid opening and everything's correct on it, we're still going to take it. And we could approve that as a council. Law's going to say no, just like Law said before, but 4 people voted against the law department, which changed everything. That's the truth. That's on the record. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Harding. There's a motion, a second to deny the appeal. No further lights. Roll call.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Palermo. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 4-3. Non-action items, items 53 through 85 do not require public hearing or city council consideration at this meeting, but will be placed on a future agenda for public hearing and or vote. The reason for non-action is noted after the item on the agenda, as well as the date the item is expected to appear on agenda for consideration.
Second. Roll call.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Palermo. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Meeting is adjourned at 3:52.